Hello, hello. I am Steph Lee. I'm the founder of Host Agency Reviews, and this is the Friday 15. Welcome. So if this is your first time, the Friday 15 happens every Friday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we go ahead and we take your questions during the lunch break. We take 15 minutes to answer all of your travel industry questions. If you have a question, you can leave it in the comments below, or you can go to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15 and submit your question there. So let's jump into things. First question today is, what's the benefit of a travel agency franchise? Well, I look at a travel agency franchise. One of the big benefits is it's a business in a box. So it is plug and play, ready to go. A comparison for real life would be when you buy a house from a developer and it's ready, like it's a model home. It's ready for you to move in. It's plug and play. You're not having to choose any of the paint colors or the fixtures, but you still do have to do some personalization to make it your own and bring in your moving equipment, right? So a franchise is plug and play. It's ready to go. Versus like if you were getting a custom home, that would be more like when you're having to build your own brand. You're having to decide on every single aspect of the house to make it your own. The other big advantage of the franchise model is that there's consumer recognition already of that brand. They spend a lot of money every year promoting to consumers. And so that's already built in for you, which is often a very difficult part of getting started for people. Now, let's take a look at, well, let me show you, because within franchises, there's variations on the models within franchises. So they're all franchises in the fact that you pay a royalty every year to use their brand. So you get 100% of your commissions, which is different from a host agency. And Mary April, let's put in the comments a link to our article on what is a host agency, as well as the article that compares host agencies to franchises and the differences between those. We don't have time to go over everything today, so those are great supplemental reads if you're interested. But with a franchise, you get 100% of your commission, which is fantastic. You do pay a royalty fee, but that royalty fee is on your sales. So it's typically a percent of your sales, maybe 2 to 3% of your sales. And there are, like I said, I'm going to share my screen. So if you go up here to our list and go to franchises, I want to show you some things to be aware of that differ between franchises. So there's 3 areas, underneath here. So are you required to use the franchise brand? Sorry, I've got the dogs in here. One of them just moved. So are you required to use the franchise brand? You can see with host agency or with cruise planners, yes, you are required to use cruise planners. So you can't be Stephanie's Travel / Cruise Planners. Is the accreditation number required? That's something that differs too. So you are not required to have an accreditation number here with Cruise Planners. And we'll link in the comments as well to different accreditation options that are available to you. We have an article that goes over all the accreditation numbers. The last one to look at and know that there's a difference between franchises is the location requirement. So you may have to be home-based, or you may have to be storefront, or you could be both of those. So let me, I just want to do a comparison, because Travel Leaders is pretty much the complete opposite of Cruise Planners. So with you aren't required to use the franchise brand, which is why a lot of times you'll see Travelers / Stephanie's Travel. But you are required to have your own accreditation number, and the location requirement is that you have a storefront. Now, I'm going to close that. With the location requirement of having a storefront, those end up being quite a bit more expensive buying a franchise that is retail based. ends up being on the higher end of the spectrum. So anywhere between $10,000 to $40,000 is the startup cost for a travel agency franchise. And we'll link to our article again on travel agency franchises. And that has the cost of everything listed in there and kind of compares things. But if you are a veteran or a minority business owner, some of the franchises have discounts available to you. So that $10,000 to $40,000 cost can be brought down. The other situation where the cost can be brought down is if you're bringing them a book of business. So if you're bringing $1 million in sales or $10 million in sales, they often will bring down the startup costs to next to nothing for you. So be aware of that. Two other things I want to mention with franchises. So they are regulated by, I think it's the FTC, and they are required to give you something called the franchise disclosure document, or the FDD. And that essentially gives you a huge write-up on everything that you're getting into. So that gives you a very clear cut on what you can expect. The other thing that the FTC requires that they do is that they give you 14 days to back out of your contract. So if you've signed and then you have buyer's remorse, 14 days in, you are still able to back out of the contract. And that's something to be aware of. And in terms of the options that are out there, so there's Expedia Cruises, Cruise Holidays, there's Dream Vacations, there's Travel Leaders, and there's Cruise Planners. So there's about 5 travel franchise options available out there. And I hope that helps answer your questions. So our next question is, what is the GDS and why can't I get access to it? That's a wonderful question, and one we actually get a lot. So the GDS stands for the Global Distribution System, and they have been around. Hey boys, that's Orion and Fenny. If you haven't met them before, they're often co-working with me. So the GDS systems have been around for a long time. You may have heard of them. There's Amadeus, there's WorldSpan, there's Travelport, there's Sabre, to name a few of them. Now, let me think of the best way. Okay, so let's talk about what the GDS is. So the GDS is essentially, it's a platform that connects travel agencies to different vendors, and that's going to be air, car, and hotel. So the GDS is the middleman here, and in real time, they give inventory updates. So as soon as a seat is booked or as soon as a room is taken, it is pulled from the inventory. And travel agents can see the real-time inventory and book in real time. And you're probably saying that sounds an awful lot like the internet, Steph. And it is. The thing about the GDS, though, is they've been around for a long time, so it was very revolutionary at the time. Let's take a look at. So one of the reasons people aren't given. Whoops. We just got Orion a couple weeks ago, and they get along well, but they're still hey boy, calm down. Mom is trying to do a video here. All right. So with the GDS system, there is a really steep learning curve to it. And that is the main reason why people are not given access to it. Let me show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see. Okay. We'll see if this works. I want to show you. All right. Sorry, this takes me a little bit. There's a lot happening on the back end here. Okay, so this is a GDS booking I did with Molly Williams. And I just want to show you. So this is the back end. She's in WorldSpan, which is part of Travelport. And there's 2 sides to the GDS. So there is the green screen or the blue screen, which is kind of a command prompt. And let me show you what it looks like. So Molly's going through this. All right. So right here on the left-hand side is kind of what we're referring to when we call the green screen in the blue screen. So you can see she's typing in commands and it spits back different things to her. And this isn't obviously super easy to read. So that is why, one of the main reasons why people are not allowed into the GDS system, because there's a lot of other ways to book air, car, and hotel. And trying to teach someone the GDS system is not worth it. So the other reason is fraud and debit memos. So tricky thing about the GDS system is you can type things in and it will let you book a ticket. But the problem is if you did something wrong and the airlines are the ones that give the debit memos, they can come back to you 2 months down the road, 8 months down the road, 2 years down the road and say, you booked that ticket wrong. You owe us $50 or you owe us $250. So it can be really expensive for the agency if someone is in there that doesn't know what they're doing. And I would encourage you, we'll put the link to our What is the GDS article, which goes really in depth and it has a cool picture of the GDS, like kind of how they did ticketing before the GDSs. It's really neat, kind of the history behind it. But we'll put a link to that article because in there is a Amadeus training video and it will show you the green screen or the blue screen and give you more in depth. You can walk through why it's difficult. It's essentially computer programming. So the debit memos will also put a link to what is a debit memo article, so you can get an idea of the costs behind them and exactly what you can get a debit memo for. So those are the main reasons why you are not allowed into the GDS system. And for most advisors, honestly, you're not using it enough for it to make sense to even try to learn it, because there's a lot of different ways you can book airline tickets outside of the GDS system. So one is you can use an airline consolidator, which is a wholesaler of air. You can call in there and they can book it. They work with travel agencies exclusively. You can book it on the airline's website. Some agents let their clients know that they don't do airline tickets and the client can book it on their own. Or you can call in if you're with a host agency. You can call in and the host may have a ticketing desk and you can call in and do the ticketing through their GDS system, but have one of their staff members do it. Or they might have an air booking tool that's point and click that you're able to use. I think the one thing I forgot to mention about the GDS is I talked about like the blue screen and the green screen. They have that side, which is the legacy side of things. They do have what's called the GUI side, which is the graphical user interface side, which is essentially point and click. So it's very similar to when you're booking anything online. It's a lot more user friendly. But again, then we still have the same problem with, are you using it and are you using it correctly? Putting in the information that needs to be in there, because agencies actually have to pay for every login to the GDS system too, which is partially why they don't give it to everyone in everything that asks. And let's see, I think that brings us into our last question. So Jennifer asked, hello, Steph. I am halfway through your roadmap to becoming a travel advisor course. As I prepare to interview host agencies, I have one big question about the industry standard. If I were to leave an agency after some success and book under my own accreditation number, would I be starting anew, or would my sales under my host agency be accounted for? Thank you. Well, Jennifer, thank you for taking the course. So that is our course. I partnered with ASTA, the American Society of Travel Advisors, on that. And we'll put a link in the comments to the course. It's normally $299. If you use HAR's code, it brings it down to $99. Our code is HAR99. And it's 240 pages of how the travel industry works. If you like the site, it's a fabulous, more linear way of going through things. And it also has a bunch of videos, including a GDS booking, the one I showed you with Molly, that you can watch on how agents are booking. So, all right, Jennifer, to answer your question, if you were to leave and go and get your own accreditation, yes, as a general rule, your sales under your host agency would be accounted for. Maybe not with every supplier, but for every supplier that matters. So typically what they'll do is if you're leaving, if you can, show a track record of your sales with them, which they'll easily be able to access. Or you can have your BDM or your business development manager vouch for you. They'll be able to say, put you up at 11% if that's what your sales would be equal to. So yes, if you go off on your own, you should be able to have your sales count towards your new accreditation number. So if you're just jumping on now, this is the Friday 15. Every Friday at 12 noon Central Time, we go ahead and answer your travel industry questions. And we want to hear your questions. So ask them in the comments below or go to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. And we will see you next week. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Mwah, 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 mwah. Weekend time.